different ceilings.
Mm-hmm.
Use these
And they were always
first,
some different
and
kind
if
of
these die, then we have
friggin',
pack and
you know,
pack.
it was either way high or way close, or we had to, try to get the right thing.
Yeah. Do we know where the cookies came from?
What?
Do we know where the cookies came from?
Yeah, they came from the gentleman over that table, back table. I always forget. Where's he at? He moved. He moved.
It's 7 o'clock yet.
It is.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's about, it is, yeah, wait, see if Stefan's online.
We are online. We're online.
All right. Where's the 4?
I could do it.
Okay.
You want to?
The 7?
Come
Ah!
on.
All right, attention, please. Who's driving the bus tonight?
Wish I knew.
This guy. Not for this. Membership meeting, May 18th, 2021. Welcome, Sarah and friends. There we go. The best looking hams in the hobby. And the nicest, too. Some might disagree. Where's Dustin?
Yeah, but which two are nice?
At Hamvention by now. So you got to put up with me tonight. I'm KD8SLG, just Nick. So here's what we're doing tonight. We'll start with announcements. Thank you. Next Sarah-sponsored event is the VE session is Saturday, June 3rd, 10 a.m. with our very own NAWB and his crew there.
Crew. The crew.
W9 IMS special event. I'm thinking Gary threw this in here for me because I don't do this stuff. So I had to go on QRZ and find out about it. Big, long list of instructions. Yes, Russ?
The first one took place last weekend, and the second one's coming up in a week or two. And if you didn't get the first one, you missed out.
What's the first one?
The road course race.
Okay.
The road course race.
Oh, okay.
Right? And, well, it's in Indianapolis. It's 3 races,
Gotcha.
and you got to get all 3 with your certificate. And I couldn't get a jersey, so I'm not even gonna bother with the rest.
Okay, thank you for that, Russ.
I didn't know about it.
Well, I did. I went and looked it up. I think Gary threw that in to make me do something. So, yeah, it is. You have to get all 3 races to get the certificate. There's a big, long list of places where you can listen and all this stuff. And it looked hauntingly like the rules for field day. So there's that. All right, Border Breaker Net on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock with NCO, KD8EPC Dustin, and me logging. And we've had really, really good participation when we've been linking up to 3-9 that afternoon. We usually do what, Dustin, about 40 check-ins, and usually between 14 and 16 of them have been from Ohio. So thank you all for participating in that. And while I'm in there, I do want to say that those of you who have digital radios that do D-Star, C4FM, DMR, the 275 is a really, really good repeater. So if you want to play some radio on there, jump on there. And I usually have at least a Yaesu tuned in there, if not a D-Star as well. So play with that repeater as well. Any other announcements this time? Anybody here at the table?
50-50.
What about the 50-50?
50-50.
Have you not sold enough to cover the bill tonight? Okay. Buy some 50-50 tickets, please. See Russ at the back table there. Russ, raise your hand so everybody knows where you are.
Yeah, because no one knows you, Russ.
Yeah, there we go.
That's where we at.
How much did we sell so far of these guys? We're at the Eagles. Here's my keys.
It's more than he's
The
got
Eagles
fingers
area.
and toes. So.
Do you have any? Okay, you're going to do tech thing later, so let's just move on to the next one. We'll keep going. All right. Approval of the minutes. Look at that guy up there. There he is.
Hey.
Yes.
Well,
Go
look
ahead,
how
Russ.
handsome
What?
we got.
All right, we need $48 more, or some semblance thereof. Have at it there, Russ. All right, approval of the minutes tonight. Is that actually moving background that he put in there?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, that's really cool. Anyway, Gary put these slides together for me. He's significantly more creative than I am. You guys have seen my slides. They're white background, black print. They look like generic products from the grocery store. So approval of the minutes. I know you all got minutes in the email, and I didn't print up any and kill any trees to throw out on the tables like we usually do. If you read through them, you will find that they were incredibly detailed. It was almost like being here, and I'm thinking maybe we ought to change it from approval of the minutes to approval of the seconds. Mike, come on up. I know you. Yeah, I know. I know you have an announcement to make there, but once he does that, then we're going to ask for approval of the minutes, and somebody's going to have to go through that process. But
Okay, I just have a few things. One, make sure to sign the sign-in sheet. We're going to be working on something else, just so we can just get your name checked. You don't have to write out the whole thing. Let's see, what else? I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this, but I'd also like to get somebody that could fill in the event that I am gone. You never know. I'm old. I can get sick. I think that was it. So.
all right, thanks, Mike. We'll find okay. Part of what Gary and I wanted to do this year is build a leadership pool so that we can continue getting people and rotating them through the officer positions. So that'd be a great opportunity for someone to jump in there with Mike and start taking some of the minutes. And then Mike's going to move on to treasurer because he wants another motorcycle.
I need to pay for it.
Oh.
What do they do with those half pennies?
So anybody approve the meetings or the minutes, please? WA8KOC approved and second.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Stefan. All right, that was quick and dirty. Let's move on to the treasurer report. All right, take it away, Jeff.
All right, as you can see, beginning balance, 4956. We did have an outlay for meeting hall rental, which we're in here. This covers us through the rest of the year. We did purchase the projection screen you're looking at. And also we took in $80, thank you, in the last 50/50 raffle. We do have a monthly charge for All-Star hosting, virtual hosting, $720. We did take in $315.50 in membership dues. And we also had, which I want to talk about a little bit, a $90 donation to Sarah. And the person that made the generous donation would like to remain anonymous. And he has asked us to use the money to provide memberships to any current or prospective members that may have a hardship or other need from preventing them from becoming a member. So I'd like to ask you all to help in identifying anybody that might have such a need and reach out to anybody in the Sarah leadership, and we will, with any potential candidates, and we will distribute funds for memberships. So I just wanted to pass that along. It was a very generous donation. And the ending balance is $4727.56 with $1,100 in the repeater replacement maintenance allocation.
Nice.
Thank you very much, sir. Sounds good. Wow, yeah, forget about it. That's right. December, we have the Christmas party, and that's the meeting, right? So we don't.
Correct.
Yes. Oh, that'll be fun. All right. Looking forward to that. Thank you. I guess anybody, what do we need to do here?
Approve the minutes.
Yes. Approve the treasurer. That be on 8B. We don't have to do that?
Yeah, we always do.
We've
Okay.
done it.
Yeah, we have to-
Well, we've got first here with Stefan, second with Wade. There we go. That's
All in favor.
WD8MIU there, Mike.
All in favor. All in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone say no?
No, they don't want to be
You get
treasurer.
the job next.
Okay, yeah. This one? Yeah. Okay. All right, field day stuff. That's me. And we rented the hall.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer.
Blaine, I told you. You see your photo up there? Yeah, you are. Front and center, buddy. What are you working there? FT8? All right, that'll be fun. Okay, so the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. That's where we're going to start talking about field day here. That is to say, I'm going to tell you what we got planned out so far. There's only so much pre-planning you can do. So, antenna crew, you guys know who you are. And we're going to get in there at 10 a.m. We're going to have the antenna up early. Week beforehand, we're going to invite ourselves out to Jason's house and do a dry run of setting up the antenna, run it through the analyzer, blow the dust off of it, make sure that everything's functioning as it should before field day. No, we're not going to set his house on fire.
We don't know stuff.
So antenna crew guys, you know who you are. And for those of you who don't know, the terminated folded dipole, is that what it's called? We'll work on 10, 15, 20, 40, and 80 at the same time. Now, I'm going to tell all of you about my first field day experience, which was Sierra Club. Believe it or not, 2 years ago, when I knew nothing. And as I believe, I volunteered for the antenna crew. And what was my mantra that day? Do you remember, Javen? I am a tent stake. Yes. Okay. That was pretty much what I did. I held a guy wire and I got out of the way and let the guys who knew what they were doing do what they did. And I was a tent stake. Jason remembers too, don't you? Yes.
Been a good one.
And
You-
I
you-
was
excellent steak.
I was a very good tent stake. So there will be a point to me telling the stories here, but I volunteered. I jumped in there and I didn't know what I was doing, but I managed to help out, but not get in the way at the same time. And that is a better quality than some of you may know. I also volunteered a radio and to be an operator for that day as well. I had just gotten my General. I had a 991 that was still in the box, a 991A, and I wanted to hook it up to a radio and try it out. And so,
It is a radio.
an antenna.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred, for the correction there.
Thanks, Fred.
Maybe I shouldn't have taken that barometer net shift this week. And I'll remember that. So set up from noon until 2. Just out of curiosity, real quick cross section. Who plans on being there to set up from noon until 2? All right, good deal. So just sort of gauging how much I'm going to have to prod people or not. Thank you for that, Jason. I'm counting on you. That you know.
I feel like people would need me.
I need you. So set up from noon until 2. It's going to be lots of moving tables, setting up radios, running wires, testing equipment, reporting software and hardware testing. We do have a safety officer nominated, KG4SCK. Say hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mark. Okay. And that's a little more than just getting the little sheet from ARRL and checking off the boxes, but he's going to be going around and making sure that tripping hazards aren't there and that we aren't overloading anything or starting any fires or putting the gasoline for the generator by the ashtray and little things like that. Right, Mark?
That's right.
That's right.
Don't burn the Legion Hall down.
Yeah. Yeah,
No.
that's awesome.
I'm supposed to leave that place cleaner than we found it, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, don't lose the trail weenies.
So during that time, there'll be lots going on, and part of why I'm doing this is so that when I was there the first time, Jason had everybody tugging on his sleeve when he was trying to do important kind of tech stuff. And I was one of those people. Where should I plug in my radio? What am I going to do? No. So hopefully I'll be there to do some of that stuff this time. And Jason can do the important thinking kind of stuff. And I can be a little bit of a buffer between that and this.
So is that an upgrade from a tent stake?
Yes. Yes. From a tent stake to a buffer.
All right.
All right. And yes. Okay.
Steak, Jeff.
You got it.
Not steak.
There, we got another
See,
steak.
now that we've established a hierarchy,
Yes. Yes. So I'll continue my story. All right. So I showed up and I had a tub with my radio in it, and I had a power supply and all the cords I needed. And the week before, I went to DX Engineering and I bought a Heil headset and I bought a foot pedal, and I'm all ready to go. And I got everything. I even brought my own rolling chair, my own chair, because I wanted to be comfortable when I was planted there, locked in that chair and just working things. So I found this, which was a very, very important thing for me to have. But it was there. He put it on my radio, and it's got the call sign there, W8WKY. And if you've never used somebody else's call sign before, it's not that easy. Class 5A, that's us, Ohio section. Do not tune this radio outside of the following range. Okay, that's very important, the way these radios are set up. And I'm pretty sure as I was about to hit the tuner button, somebody grabbed my hand. But if you'll notice, my assigned frequency was 3.5 to 4.0. Anybody in here do HF a lot? Anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what was that, 80 meters? How's that work in the afternoon?
Not very good.
Okay. So, yeah. I sat down at my radio. I'm ready to go at it. And I guess in those 3 hours, I probably made maybe 10 or 12 contacts, because that was everybody within that range. But
That's not bad for 2 in the afternoon.
I know it's not. But the other part of that is, I was ready to be strapped in that chair and not walk away. And I did. That was my radio. I wanted to do it. But this is the first time I'd met a bunch of people I'd been talking to on the radio for a long time that I'd never met before. Some of them have become very good friends. So it will be a social event. But I do want the people who have brought their radios to stay there, because once we get everything set up and ready to go, then it's prime time from 2 to 5. That's when it's the dog and pony show time, right? All right. So we're going to have the public coming in. We're going to have other clubs coming in. The mayor, scout troop, at least one maybe. So we may have a scout troop coming in. We want to operate radios. We want to give some of the techs a chance to play in the general bands. We want people to be able to try some different radios. So the operator is going to have to be by their radios, not necessarily strapped to them, but sort of tethered to them. So, excuse me, ball and chain. Yes.
So real quick, I don't know if you guys remember, but Melinda she was licensed at one of our VE sessions. She's the one with the little baby that came in. Was it last year or two years ago? Last year, and she was blown away. If you remember, she just handed her child to someone. Could you watch him? And she sat at the radios, man, and she was listening and working, and it was a beautiful thing. But that's kind of the thing that we're looking to do for any outsiders or people. Like I said, that gave her a new outlook. Now she's studying for her general. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had 80 meters that afternoon. I couldn't do anything with it after those first ones. So the other best friend you'll have is a Nifty manual. If you're not familiar with these things, grab one. But I needed it for my radio. I figured out how to do voice recordings. So I was having people sit down in my station. They could record their own voice and listen to themselves on the radio playback without us getting in anyone's way. So there are ways around what station you have. So 80 meters gets really good at night, though. Right, Brian? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So about 6 o'clock or so. Russ is going to feed us. Russ? 5? Okay, we'll shoot by, you shoot for 5, which means we'll eat by 6. All right there, Russ. I'm sure Russ will take care of us. I look forward to it. So the afternoon there, we're focused on everybody. Everybody eats. We all get kind of, but the bands start opening up, and that's when the operators start operating. Okay. I got 12 contacts in the afternoon on my radio. KF8G Brian there sat down on my radio, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning and got 5 times that many contacts in an hour. And
with the Youngstown group, I had 380 contacts on 8 meters.
okay, well, I'm sure Youngstown Group will have you back too. So it was, and then see, you stole my joke because then you came over to me and said, I could have gotten more with my other radio. Yeah, I know you could have. So overnight operations are where some of the fun really happens. Take out 10 meters, which won't be doing a whole lot probably. Put up a 160 meter wire, FT8 on 160, and we'll get 150, 200 contacts from that. Yeah. So once we get into nighttime, it turns into a little bit more of smaller group, less visitors, a lot more operating, and racking up the points. Okay, and experimenting a little. We can change some radios in and out, change the antenna a little bit. And then breakfast. Ross, will you still have breakfast for us, even though I'm being mean to you? Everybody but me. Thank you. Well, I'll get coffee for everyone, even you. What? Well, Gary will bring it if he wants coffee. He will. So we tend to start cleaning up after breakfast. So if you're thinking you're going to come in there at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning and find a bunch of guys still hammering away on radios, probably hand you a broom. Okay, so we'll do breakfast. We'll wrap things up and we'll call it a day because there are going to be some of us that are going to be tired by then. I've got probably 4 or 5 radios and operators lined up for the bands. Okay, but one of them is mine, as I said. So I'd like somebody to maybe operate my radio, or if somebody wants to bring another radio in there, you're more than welcome to. We've got plenty of time. Okay, I am not going to figure these tasks out down to the minute. A lot of this stuff is if this, then that. IFTTT, okay? We're going to open up the doors. We're going to see how many tables we have. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8. They don't want us folding up tables or doing some other things, so we're going to work with what we find in there. We're just going to have to make it work. I don't want to assign stations because we may get in there and find that this person's wire or coax isn't long enough to do this, or their power cord isn't long enough to do that, and then we have to rearrange things. So we'll just do it in real time. It's not that big of a deal. We, the willing, led by the unknowing, have been doing so much for so long with so little. We are now qualified to do anything with nothing at all. If anybody wants to recite that back to me, have at it.
You said anybody that wants to repeat it back.
I know it was. I'm looking around. I'm looking for Eric, VCA. I bet you guys could do it. And Mark there too. You Navy guys. Thank you for that, Keith. So, we'll do a lot of this stuff in real time that day. And that's just how it has to do. Hopefully, Jason will be free to just make sure the stuff's working the way that it should. And then he can leave.
Really?
Come back in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just keep your phone with you, please.
Okay.
Okay? Because I got to tell you, overnight, do you remember one of the bands was getting noisy or something? and on one of the filters, and I watched.
Oh, yeah.
I watched you and somebody basically just. What did you guys do? See, I don't even know what you did.
Well, we found out the coax was broken.
Okay.
It was a loose connector, and we actually just started replacing each piece of cable until we figured out which one it was. That's the one where Gary woke me up at like 2 a.m. and I almost attacked him because he startled me.
Boo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we may have a solution for napping this time. How about it there, Phil? Yeah, and you know what? That's the kind of thing that I would have, I would have spent a month on Google. I eventually would have gotten there, but we don't have that kind of time. So the fact that you guys did that stuff in real time in like 10 minutes, that actually impressed me. And here we are. So Jason's going to do the techie stuff. Gary's going to be there, and he's going to set up the public table with all the pamphlets and all the stuff on it, and he'll be, meeting and greeting, kissing babies and shaking hands and greasing palms. And hopefully I'll just be there to kind of, make sure stuff happens, right? That's what the chairman's supposed to do, right? So hopefully that will work out for you there, Jason. That is one of my main goals. And what I'd really like to do is learn a bunch more stuff from you this time around. And next time you'll have even less to do.
I like that plan.
I know you do. All right.
At the risk of prolonging this, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, you
Mr.
may.
Yeah,
Please.
so just on the technical side of things, just to expand a little bit on what Nick was just saying, we do a couple different things that people are welcome to consider. The first is obviously don't be shy about operating someone else's radio. The people who have volunteered their radios have volunteered their radios for them to be used, not to just look pretty on the table. The second thing that we have done in the past, and we welcome it this year, but you got to coordinate it with me first. We've had people in the past who've said, "Oh, I just got this radio and I want to see how it works," or "Can you show me how to do a thing?" Right? We have all of the equipment necessary for you to bring that radio with your power cord. Cough, cough, hint, hint. Bring your power cord, preferably with Anderson power poles on the end of it. And we can at least try to help you run your radio. If it's any of the regular types of radios, someone at Field Day will probably know, if not how that literal radio works, how that family of radios ish works. Even though the screens look different, they all work kind of the same way within a family. The other thing too is we do have a really good filtering system that keeps the radios well suppressed from off-band transmissions. So the thing we're going to probably entertain this year is we've always had the 160 dipole up. We've grabbed it a few times. It does tune up on all sorts of other bands. I mean, it's literally a half-wave 160 dipole with a 1-to-1 bound. So it tunes up great on everything else because it's just a gigantic piece of wire. So we probably, like Nick was talking about his 80-meter 2 p.m. experience, right? We could do FT8 on 80 meters. There's a lot of FT8 activity now that's a lot easier to do on 80 meters. The other possibility would be to pick like maybe 40 meters, something that's a wider band, maybe run some FT8 or some CW on the dipole while we have the other one operating a different band. So we're going to probably try some of that. I don't know, Javen or Wayne, I don't know, no, who was doing that last year? Yeah, are you guys going to do 6 meters this year?
Yeah, I've got a 6 meter.
Okay, yeah, so we'll probably have 6 meters.
We can add
Yeah.
stuff, as long as it's running off of battery or emergency power,
Right.
and it's under 100 watts, we can keep adding and subtracting radios pretty much at will.
Yeah. The only thing I want to emphasize with that is we want to make that stuff available. But if you're interested in something particular, please let me know in advance what the something is. We are unlikely to say no unless it's like oddly dangerous or something. But what we can't do is you can't show up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go, hey, I brought my thing that I want to put up here and do this. The reason being is once we have the main antenna field set up, we can't move it, right? So how we interleave different of antennas kind of, to some degree, kind of matters, right? So we'll work with you, but please don't just show up the day of and say, hey, I'm going to run your station. Well, thank you, but no.
Oh,
Yeah. So again, we want to be open to things that people want to do. If you want to do something, let me know. We're happy to come. So.
cool. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, Russ.
I have a 450.
What?
I have a Yaesu 450. I'm not using it, so I want to use it on field day.
Okay.
But if you don't,
Okay.
All right, we'll talk later, Russ. So I will need help scoring, by the way. I wondered, why do they give us a month to put in the scores? Everything. Yeah, then I started reading.
Oh, the program I wrote calculates automatically.
Okay.
You don't have to do any of it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you don't, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, sir.
I did it once and said, I'm never doing this by hand again.
Yeah, it'll just take 10 hours to do it once, so it does it forever once more.
Yes.
All right, T-shirts are up on the website for field day, okay? Short sleeve or long sleeve, safety green. Short sleeves are small through large are
We have youth small through youth, extra large, and then small through 5X for both types.
all right, and up until large, they are
Is up until extra large, they're a short sleeve or 18,
18
long
and
sleeve or 20.
23.
No, I'm sorry. Short sleeve
15
are
and 18.
15, long sleeve are 18.
Yes, 15, 18, and
Plus 3 on the short sleeve, plus 5.
You have 10 days to order them right now. Get it in by Sunday, the 28th, and they will be available at the next club meeting and on field day. So we want to have them in time for field day, obviously. And that is another note. We are blessed with our next meeting is on the 15th of June. So a week before field day, we still get together one more time to really iron out anything that we need to iron out.
Plea on behalf of the person who had a box of unpicked up field day t-shirts in his office for 3 months, that if you are going to order a field day t-shirt and you are not planning on coming to the June meeting or field day, please consider spending the money on shipping. It's not cheap because USPS rates have gone up like a rocket ship recently. But if you want the shirt and we want to get you the shirt, we're happy to mail you the shirt. Just please select that at checkout. And we're not profiting on the shipping. Like it's adds, I think, like $7, and that's literally what it costs to stick a shirt in a bag and put it in the mail these days.
All right. Or if there are 2 X's, I will wear the shirt before you come get it. I think that's it for that.
Yeah.
All right. Tech committee report with Jason McCormick, NADI.
Yeah, I don't really have anything new to report on the tech committee stuff. Huh?
This guy.
That's me right
That's
there.
you.
You know, the same. I haven't messed with the 70 centimeter machine because the digital stuff has been working. There was some possible interruptions 6 weeks ago reported, but I think that might have just been, I don't know, goats, something. So it's been fine. So I haven't messed with it yet. At some point, and see if it really is a problem with the TKR. Other than that, everything seems to be working really well. So,
All right. What about you want to talk at all about the storage and disposal, or we're not ready to go there yet?
yeah, we're not ready for that yet.
Okay. We're not ready for that yet. Good deal.
Oh, you know, I do want to make one. I do have
Yeah.
one thing. So as many of you know, we did replace the 3.9 machine with a very nice new Kenwood NXR 710. As a matter of fact, someone a month or so ago sent us an email with a waterfall display telling us we had the nicest cleanest waterfall display.
WB8CXO, I think.
Is that who it was?
Yeah.
We had the nicest repeater waterfall in the area. So, but in all seriousness, with that, the club does have the old Bridgecom VCR 50. If someone is aware of a good home for it that is of the ham relationship, we would entertain donating or at low cost giving that unit to a group of people who want it. The reason being, it was on the air for 8 years. It was on the air heavily used for 8 years, and it has some issues. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup on it before we get rid of it. Probably put some new fans in it, a couple, just to make it nice to give. I don't want to be like, here, take our piece of junk, right? But if someone knows of a club that needs a repeater, or there's a group of people who are trying to do something, like, let one of the officers of the club know, because we tried to looked up the resale value of it. The resale value of the repeater is not that high. And we don't want to get into well, how long was this on the air? I plugged it in and the magic smoke came out the back. I want my $200 back. Like, it's just not at the level of value to fiddle with. So I'm just going to put that out there. If someone knows of a need for it, it can probably just grow wings and go with our blessing. But
Where's my $2?
where's my $2?
I want my $2.
So, but in all seriousness, I mean, it does work. It's not the greatest repeater, especially if it's someone who's, a group that's off the air, something like that. It'll work for them. The club, we're in good shape, so it's nice to just kind of put that out there.
All right. What's up next?
Feedback.
Oh, we can go right past that one. All right. Anybody got any questions, problems, concerns? Anything you want to talk about? Anything from tonight? Cool. All right. Is it raffle time already?
50-50.
All right. All right.
Did we cover the room, Russ?
Do we want some more?
Anybody want to add on to the room?
There we go. All right. I've got my tickets. Just remember, our raffle here is helping pay for the digs here, and you got to admit they're pretty good digs. And I got to be honest with y'all, I expected a smaller turnout tonight. So I know a bunch of people are heading to Hamvention already.
42.
42?
I counted. There's 42 people.
That's not so bad. It's not about your weight.
You said you expected a smaller turn. I've been trying.
I understand. I've been trying to. See, I wore all black tonight, so I look skinny.
It's slender.
Yes, it is. I mean, skinnier. Yes, that's.
You missed from the neck up?
Yeah, I did. I can't do anything about that.
Russ is an equal opportunity voter.
I have to use that one.
So once we get the raffle done here, we're going to adjourn the business meeting, and then we're going to take 5 minutes and walk around and do what hams do and talk to each other. And then Jason has a presentation tonight on Gap Titan.
And vertical antennas in general.
Oh, and vertical antennas in general. Sounds like a plan.
I always tighten my gap.
Yep, I heard that about you.
I seriously though been looking forward to this one. I like read about it.
I love mine. I really do. Did I tell you?
Do you have any viewers tonight?
I'll let you tell about that.
Randy.
Do I have radio?
Oh,
Yeah,
TLB.
radios.
Randy?
No radio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Randy, man.
Did I tell you? I made a Taiwan phone.
They're waving to you, Randy.
Really? He's,
Yeah.
oh,
Here's the whole
he's a good guy.
kit and caboodle.
Who's on there?
Randy.
Randy.
TLB.
Yeah, phone contact with Taiwan.
That's impressive.
Come on, Russ. Do you want that new radio or not?
Oh, I reburied I had to move my cables from, anyway, one area where they come out of my house to a different area because I had a different thing going, so I put them together. So I dug a trench and I buried them all down there. So once you know, I have a receive antenna cable, and I had a connection in it before because there was a couple pieces of like RG6 coax.
8750.
Woohoo!
Shout it out. Don't be shy.
Oh,
It came apart after I had it buried, so I had to find it, but I had to dig it back up.
0, 0, 0. 4, 5, 0.
Oh man. K8AMX.
You got it.
You lucky dog.
again? All right, Nick, you better get this under control before we.
Okay. All right. We're going to close the meeting. Anybody want to close this thing? Dustin. Dustin was first. Stefan is second. All right. Let's take 5 minutes. Then we're going to get back here and watch Jason's presentation. Truly 5 minutes.
Thanks.
It was nice with the analyzer because I did I could see right how many feet.
How many feet
where
it
the
was.
break was.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
Well,
let me figure this out.
I told you, I showed you the thing where I hit mine with the,
ball, yeah.
No, that was the mini excavator, with the excavator.
Oh, that's
I took it out with the excavator, yeah. Go, Mike. So on the top thing on my list for Hamvention is to find mixed 31 toroids. I cannot find reasonably cost mixed 31 toroids anywhere. Everything is mixed 43 or unmarked.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I got. Yeah, you don't want the unmarked stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I have 31s. I got 43s.
Oh, you used 43s? And they worked okay.
Thank you. 8750. Let me think about that for a second. I don't remember what I actually have, but I thought they were. Are they 31s? Maybe they are 31s.
31s is the ones that are like 600 kilohertz to 70 megahertz or something like that.
Yeah, they're low band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The 40,
so those are the ones I have.
43s are up high.
Yeah, I have the lower ones because I'm up to where I'm operating.
Yeah. Well, so I had a
Just the
snap-ons.
oh snap. Okay.
Well,
I thought you
actually,
were looking for the actual toroids.
either one of them. So here's the problem. So for Christmas, we got the kids these programmable light strips for their room. Put them in, and I'm like, oh, these are going to create noise. I just know it. Turned them on, silent.
Really? Because I had those things and.
Well, hold on. So 3 or 4 weeks ago, turned the radio on from 800 kilohertz to 30 megahertz. Every 10 kilohertz. And I'm like, dang it. So I emailed Eric Rang because he lives right behind me. I'm like, hey, do you hear this? Like, is it local to me? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So then I'm like, all right, now I got to plan how to turn all the breakers off thing. So I went down to the basement on I think it was a Saturday. I cranked the volume way, way, way up on my radio so I could hear it from the room. And I just went one by one, shutting off each room breaker. So I shut one. I'm like, that sounded like it went off a little bit, maybe. Yeah, I'll turn the next one off. Noise is gone. All right, well, that's good but bad. And then I look at the breakers. Upstairs east, upstairs west. I'm like, it's those lights. So I turn them back on, noise. Yeah, right back. So I went and unplugged both light sets, quiet. So when I bought them, quiet as a mouse. Within 4 months, so now I got to figure out a way to quiet those lights off.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. Well, what it is the I'm sure is the wall work.
Yeah.
The transformer feeding them.
I might, but the problem.
So
the problem is it has a remote with like colors, and it's all one cube. So it has the power built into it and like all the logic that makes the different colors, and you can make them like flash on and off.
But it's corded.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a cord coming from the wall, going into this device, and then going out to the strip, the light strip. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're gonna have to choke it off, maybe even on both sides.
Right.
And the best thing is gonna be get them 31s
Yeah.
and wrap. You know,
Yeah.
the more you can get around them,
Yeah.
the better. As much as you can, you know, it's gonna make the cord that's this long about this
Yeah,
long
that's
when you're
okay.
done. But I've had to do that. Well, I threw mine away. I liked them, but they did the exact same thing. They were noisy as hell. Then what else did I have? I had another transformer I bought for something else that I decided to go cheaper, get one off eBay, and it was so noisy I had to send it back. It was for a little mini computer that I had running a firewall.
I'm gonna test the menu.
Okay. What's the other thing? The big one I had was an older model upright wash machine.
Oh.
And that thing would feed back through, that was the type that feeds back through the AC line. And because the motor control
Oh,
inside
okay,
there,
yeah, because it's a.
yeah, switching, for what do you call them? Anyway, it's the motor control inside there. It's in a Whirlpool, and noisy as hell. So I had to go in and put clip-ons. I tore the thing apart, put clip-ons on the individual wiring inside there. That took it down some, but what I had to do ultimately was wrap big core on it, and that took it almost away. And then I actually had to get a filter that isolated it off of the AC line totally, and then it was good. Then, after I did all that, my neighbors got new stuff, and their shit comes in. And now did it work?
So just mark me down for another year and do it. I
think
paid a
you're-
year too.
I
That's
think-
okay. No,
I
that's
think
okay.
you're paid up through like 2035 or something
No,
right
that's
now.
2035. Just mark me down for another
Okay,
year.
all right, okay.
I wanted to test. I figured it was
Yeah.
I don't need to say OEE, but it works fine.
What's
Works
that?
perfect.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Excellent.
Is Titan?
Even tells where. Oh, that's your address, Rolling Hills.
Yep.
Okay.
I want to say
But it tells where we marked it here. This is
700.
Oh, where we
Yeah.
sold it. That's pretty cool.
That'll be nice.
I'm glad that thing's working
Right,
because
you
you
gave
would
the right
not
presentation.
believe
You know what? I should look
what I
that up
had to go
because someone
through
else is
to get that thing.
That's the deal.
Because they canceled the other one.
This is fast. What we should do is tell people before meetings.
For Titan?
If you're wanting to.
Oh, I would have driven to go. I would have driven to Dover and bought
Yeah.
it.
Yep, yep.
It's 5
Okay,
days,
cool.
589.
Yeah, because what was I going to say about that? I was online with them for probably
I don't know that it's
Solid
better than something else.
2 hours.
Really?
And
I'll
then
cover it.
multiple
The nice
conversations
thing is
after
the
that and
background.
chats and everything else,
That's
and
what
then they
the
didn't
real-
send it.
that's
And I'm
what the
like,
real
did the guy send it? And another guy said no. He was supposed to,
Not
but
having
he
it
didn't. So
buried
we
like
ignited. It was a big to do just to get that thing. But, you know,
Yeah. And
it's
what
good.
I'll,
I'm glad it worked good.
what I'll do is I'll figure out how to do those menus you did for shirts in the future. So if people want to buy
Yeah,
shirts.
if you want. Yeah.
I'd have to get
Or just maybe do, instead of having to put in like 2XL and all that, maybe just put like field day shirt. And do you have to put a price with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, put in a. There's a testing coupon code in the store that will give you 100% discount on an order for test it.
Oh, for testing.
So if you're trying, and we've used it for like if you want to go register something after you gave him cash.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Yeah, that's
it's
right. Yeah.
there's I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but you can. But if you're trying to order something and you want to do a zero cost, there's a 100% coupon. Remind me, I'll look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, look it up. Yeah,
There's a
we'll test
100%
it.
coupon.
But everything's working fine with our new reader.
I gave him a new.
Oh, good.
That's
It
got
even
a
has
tab.
it even has a touch thing on it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going through my desk. I'm like, I think this is the old one, and I'm like, can I throw this away? He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, because you had one and
I had one.
you had
yeah.
one. I took his because they just told me to chuck them.
well, I've been redoing my office little by little. I bought a. I think last year I told you I bought a really nice standing desk with like all the undercarriage wiring and everything.
Nice.
So this year I bought a.
Standing chair.
No, I have a chair I absolutely love. But this year I bought a tri-screen monitor, a single post tri-screen monitor stand.
Nice.
And
I've got those are the best things. I've been using those for years. I just have the duals, but isn't that great with the
Yeah.
arms because you got all that area
Well,
underneath
I used to have two.
Yeah, I gotta get back
And what I would do is I would move work into center when I was working and then slide it out of the way and then move the other one in. So I actually rewired everything. It's all DisplayPort now.
Yeah.
And I bought a
stuff,
DisplayPort KVM, and it has a USB 3 hub in it, so I can plug in like the cameras and stuff,
Oh, nice.
and just.
Oh, sweet.
So.
No.
All right, Nick, you ready?
We're gonna get ready to go. All right, man. We'll see you in the meeting. Cool.
El Presidente.
No, we're gonna get ready to go. He's gonna start.
Or Vice Presidente.
All right, love you, my friend. Okay. Okay. Bye. All right. Start it up. Crank it up. Hello.
Oh, hey. Oh, did you hear those batteries?
Yeah, there's back truck.
No, but you look in the back of my truck.
Sure, we do.
It's the white truck that's right outside.
Right from
Yeah, the Honda Ridgeline.
Okay.
Just throw them in the back.
All right. You want everything I got? Just go through to the 326 amps. Cool.
Yeah, because all the network stuff is like 10.
He's your guy. Just don't ever ask.
I don't want to run it 12.
Yeah.
So I'll put two in parallel.
Okay.
That'll work fine.
Mhm.
You may be needing to add something more to that for the amp side.
Good, working hard, lots going on.
What
No,
screwed me
they're
up was I had 12 volt batteries, I only had 7.5 amps.
Then I'll go down
When I transferred with my radio, I needed 22 so I can kill the
Oh,
radio.
this takes
Glad to help out.
Okay.
it's 10 watts.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it
Yeah,
uses
you're
10
good then.
watts.
I'll just drop through the 26.
Sounds good.
As you move into my role, so we have to move into your role. Right, right.
753.
I don't know where Nick went.
I thought you were doing this.
Well, I am. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? Dustin. Nick keeps yelling at you, so I just figured I'd yell
All
at
right, I'm gonna
you.
have another question. I shouldn't, but I will.
All right. So we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm going to talk about a couple of things, mostly about the process I went through installing a gap tightened vertical antenna. But I'm also going to spend a little bit of time talking about why I put in a vertical antenna, a little bit why you might want to put in a vertical antenna, just to kind of lay the groundwork for why I did what I ended up doing. So as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So we're going to talk about, as I said, vertical antennas in general. I'm going to talk about some of the gap tightened specifics, and then a little bit of the installation, and then I have some nice fancy SWR charts and things like that on the actual installation. So when we talk about antennas, and I'm going to trip over this cord because I pace, so just be prepared for me to. So when we talk about antennas, a lot of times we think about the humble dipole, right? I mean, this is the classic ham antenna. And not only is it the classic ham antenna, it's the antenna by which we basically measure all other antennas. You know, if you look at an antenna, we'll say, well, what's its performance versus a dipole? Or how does it radiate versus a dipole? Or how does it look versus a dipole? Or I don't know, whatever other attributes of an antenna you want to consider. We always compare it to a dipole. So if you're looking at if you're looking straight down on top of a dipole, what we end up with is this radiation pattern. It kind of looks like a figure 8, and there's some very slight nulls off of the end of the antenna, right? So you run into the situation of, depending on how far you're trying to go and what you're trying to do, where you hang the dipole is at least a little bit important in what direction you run the wires, right? For the purposes of tonight's discussion, well, we're going to talk quite a bit about takeoff angle and radiation patterns. So this is a dipole. If you were looking at the dipole from the side and not of its shape from a compass direction, but from its how much off into the atmosphere the radio wave takes when it leaves your antenna. So if you take that figure 8 and you slice it in half and you looked at it from the side, you end up with a shape that kind of looks like this, right? And if you're not familiar with these, this arc on the outside is sort of full power to like no power in the middle, and like this is like lesser, this is more power. The specifics don't really matter, right? What matters is at different degrees above the ground, you're sending more energy either at a lower angle or a steeper angle up into the air, right? And you might look at this and go, oh, that's pretty good. You know, I've got this lobe that's about, 45 degrees, 50 degrees. I've got this lobe that's 15 degrees. It's all good. Well, yes, but this is the radiation pattern of a dipole antenna at full one wavelength height. Look at this little convenient chart I put off to the side. At 10 meters, I can probably get a dipole 36 feet in the air. Oh, 15 meters, that's 48 feet. I gotta have a big tree for that. 72, 143, 280. No, I can't do that, right? No one's hanging a center dipole 300 feet off the ground, right? K3LR probably does, just because you can. But other than that, no one's hanging a dipole at 300 feet off of the ground, right? So then we're like, okay, well, what happens when we bring that antenna down to mortal level heights that the average ham can accomplish? Well, here's that same radiation picture now at a half wave. So again, this convenient chart, it's like, well, okay, so now the radiation goes up a little more. But, okay, well, there's still this lobe here. That's not too bad. Oh, I'm still talking about 64 feet, 134 feet, and I don't have a 400-year-old oak tree to hang my antenna in, right? So then we look at, I could not find my clicker for tonight. I don't know what I did with it. So then we say, okay, well, you know what? I can really hang this at a quarter. So I can probably get an antenna up at 35, 40, 45 feet with a tree. That'll work. So now I'm at a quarter wave over ground over 40 degrees. And now I have this thing that looks like a blob. I'm just spraying radiation everywhere, right? So, and then you're asking yourself, well, why does this really matter, right? So if you think back to your licensing class or RF basics class or whatever you took, obviously HF radio works by bouncing the signal off of different layers of the atmosphere. Now, just like anything else in physics, the angle at which you bounce the thing off of the other thing determines where it goes, right? So if I take a ball and throw it straight in the ground, what's going to happen? It can go straight up. If I take a ball and throw it like that, it's going to bounce and do what? Bounce way over there and keep going. So just straight back down. If I throw it way off to the horizon, it's going to hit and go off the horizon. Now, the one thing I will say is all of this is the in general case of things, right? I'm not going to keep saying that over and over and over again, right? In general, when you send RF at a lower takeoff angle, it will go further, in general. Now, there's like 50,000 physics reasons why for different particular cases will work better in different situations, and ducting and meteor scatter and times of the year, and if you sacrifice the right animal, and all of these things, right? But in general, right, the more power you send upward is what's called NVIS, near vertical incident skywave. And in general, the more you use DX as a shortcut for international contacts. Well, it's not exactly the right term, right? DX is distance. For example, it is much closer for us to talk to Ontario, Canada, than it is to talk to Missouri, right? In fact, you can actually talk to Canada on our repeater. So when we're talking about DX, we're not necessarily talking about making these huge trans-Pacific, transatlantic DX contacts to Reunion Island or Bouvet Island or wherever. I mean, this could be something as simple as I'm trying to figure out how I can optimize talking to somebody in Arizona or Mexico or, I don't know, pick a Caribbean island that you like, right? So the reflection and the way in which you reflect the RF matters where it's going to go, right? So does that make sense? Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions about that? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. What?
No, there was no questions.
Oh, okay.
Challenging you and hoping you don't trip on the cord.
That's going to happen eventually. So why a vertical, right? We talked about the dipole case, but why a vertical? So a vertical antenna optimizes for different things than a dipole. And I want to be clear that what I'm saying is it optimizes different things. I am not saying that a vertical is better or more powerful or more magical. It optimizes different characteristics for what you're trying to do, right? As we always say, there's no one perfect antenna. If there was one perfect antenna, we would all have the one perfect antenna, and we would never have meetings where we discuss antennas ad nauseum because everyone would have the perfect antenna, right? Any antenna is a trade of a bunch of different considerations, right? So what are we talking? Why are we talking about a vertical? Polarization is different. We're not going to go into polarization too much tonight, but a vertically radiated signal travels differently than a horizontally radiated signal. It's just how it is. We're not, and that's not really germane to tonight's discussion. It's different. Height considerations. We just went through that stack of how high do I have to make my dipole to do a thing. Well, guess what you don't have to do with a vertical? You don't have to put it way up in the air. It behaves differently. Takeoff angle, we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. Noise. A vertical antenna has a different noise profile, or more accurately, the noise it hears is different than a dipole. Grounding. We don't talk a lot about grounding of a dipole because the counterpoise of the antenna, or the ground of the antenna, or the surface that the antenna is using as its reflection, is part of the antenna. In a vertical, that is not the case. Just like if you have a mag mount on your car or a vertical on your car, and you suddenly have to worry a whole lot about whether or not your antenna has a good connection to ground, right? That's a vertical. That's a key characteristic of a vertical antenna. So when we're talking about vertical antennas, we're really talking about something that largely is this, right? We've got an antenna. You connect to it there, and that's kind of it. Like there's a thing, right? But then we look at here, well, here's our coax, we've got a shield, and then we've got this thing that looks like a crazy spider drawn by a 6-month-old. And then we talk about radials, right? So, characteristics of a vertical antenna. The most important characteristic of the difference of a vertical antenna is that you have to have an engineered ground plane or counterpoise, right? Which in the simplest case is a radial. Now, what's a radial? So a radial is a whole bunch of wires, and 4 is just sort of this is just a notional thing of a radial. If you're talking about a really good static traditional vertical, you're really talking about like 24 to 32 wires that are the same length as your vertical, spread out in a perfect fan-shaped pattern in 360 degrees around your vertical antenna. Do you want to install 36 perfectly aligned 360-degree wires in the ground? I don't. And I spend a lot of time fiddling with things like this, and I don't want to do that, right? So this is one of the reasons a lot of people don't put in vertical antennas. It takes a lot of work to put them in. And then mowers, kids, animals, trenching tools, skid steers, depending on what you're doing, may or may not take out pieces of your antenna. Matching with dipoles, just like with dipoles, length matters, right? But with verticals, rather than making the vertical taller or shorter necessarily, there's usually loading coils that are used at the base of the antenna. And you've seen, I'm sure you've seen these in like QST. There's like this is our radial or our loading coil kit, and there's like this big silver spiral and like all these alligator clamps, and that's a loading coil, right? It changes the resonance length, the electrical length of the antenna without changing its physical length. And then, as we mentioned, we have the feed points at the base. Now that can be kind of nice, right? Because if you want to put a dipole 50 feet in the air, well, now you suddenly got to add 50 feet of feed line. So 50 less feet of feed line is good, because feed line only creates losses in your system. So less feed line is always nice, right? Oh, thank you. So other reasons, and this is one of the interesting ones. The takeoff angle is much lower regardless of your elevation. Very little power is directed upwards, and this optimizes for those distance type transmissions. Now, again, I'm going to remind everybody, caveats, physics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In general, you're optimizing for distance transmissions for some definition of distance, right? If we look at this chart, and most of these charts, I have them referenced here, most of these charts come out of the ARRL handbook. If we look at the radiation patterns here, again, with this outer arc being full power, right? What we see is from the center, and this is where we sliced that radiation pattern on its side, and we're looking at the side of the antenna. So our antenna is right here. What we see is, and this is a perfect ground, which no one has perfect ground, right? So obviously we're looking somewhere between average ground and I'd say a good ground, right? So we're talking about somewhere from the outside of this lobe to, I don't know, pick a mathematically correct halfway point between those two polygons, right? We're talking about radiation in these directions. Well, what do we see? Well, most of the power is going to come off the antenna between about 15 and 45 degrees. So now we're optimizing our RF emissions for that distance, right? Just like throwing that ball way out is going to make it bounce and, keep on going versus, right? So that's kind of what the traditional vertical looks like. Any questions about any of that?
I got a question.
All right, Fred, thank you.
I asked this for a friend I know. He's in an apartment complex, right? He's got like 10 feet from the wall of the house to the fence. Between the house and the fence, there's a concrete pad. I mean, the total area is probably 10 by 10 by 10 by 10, right?
Yeah.
Is there any sense of even thinking about putting radios up? You can't bury them in concrete. I mean, so someone told me if you take and you coil these radios, that will make up for the difference in length. I don't know. Well, in any event,
I think
I'm gonna put a new antenna up. I see no sense in even fooling with the radio, because what goes it gonna do you?
so. Hold on to that.
Get the necessary length.
So hold on to that question because
Yeah.
you don't want a traditional vertical. Hold on to the, give me a minute. We'll get to that. Any questions on the traditional vertical? All right. Vertical dipole. So this is a little different, right? Vertical dipole is a vertical that's a dipole. So vertical, I don't know, right? Physically dipole on its side, right? Electrically, the radiation pattern becomes omnidirectional versus the horizontal dipole. Remember, if we look down on it, that radiation pattern kind of makes that figure 8. Well, now if you think about it, you took that figure 8 and you twisted it on its side. Wait, yeah, this way, right? So now your nulls are shooting off into the ground and straight up into space. So now you have a interesting thing. So now you have the feature of a dipole in that you, again, have the built-in counterpoise. You don't have any radial considerations. You have sort of the dipole-ish 2 major lobes of radiation, which is this black line here versus like this dots are inverted V. There's a perfect inverted V, and this dashed line is sort of the worst case inverted V. But now you have a different type of height problem, right? Now, if you want to put a half-wave dipole, you still have a half-wave-ish problem, except now you don't have a half wavelength long and a half wavelength high. Now you just have a half wavelength high or a quarter wavelength high, right? So that chart still applies. So now the question is, well, I like the characteristics of a vertical dipole because now I don't need radials. I like the characteristics of a vertical because I can have a more optimized radiation pattern. I don't have the nulls and I have some of those lower takeoff angles. But now I still have this same physical challenge. So there are a number of solutions for this. The one that I ended up going with, and I've been happy with so far, is an antenna called the Gap Titan DX. So this is one of the pictures. This is my Gap Titan. The antenna itself, it's a little hard to see if you're further away. The antenna itself starts right about here and goes all the way up to the tippy top right about there. And we'll talk about the installation here in a few minutes. So height, 25 feet. It's not super tall, right? 25 feet, that's not going to be crazy to mount, especially if you put it on the ground. Well, what does it cover for 25 feet? Well, actually, the Gap Titan will get you 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, 30, 40, and 80 meters. We'll talk about the Asterisk in 1 second. In ham bands, traditional ham bands, you've got them all. You've got the Wark bands, 12, 17, and 12 and 17, and 30. The only thing you're really missing is 60 meters, which are those 5 interop channels with the government that, quite honestly, get very little use, and some people play with them, but I really wouldn't optimize an antenna around having them work, right? Full bandwidth. The antenna works across the entire band of 10 through 40 meters. And then we come to our little friend, the Asterisk, right? Well, the little friend, the Asterisk, is that 80 meters, you have to pick what part of 80 meters you want to use because there's a capacitor hat in the antenna that tunes the antenna, and you get about 100 kilohertz wide slice of the 80/75 centimeter band. And you have to pick up front at construction time which piece you want and live with that decision for all time. So you have to think about it a little bit. But really nice feature, no ground plane required, right? This webbing kind of thing here, if you can see these crossbars, is not a ground plane, right? This is a vertical dipole, 25 feet tall, that captures all of these bands with no ground plane. And you say, Jason, that's magical. It's too good to be true. Well, yes and no. Yeah, Fred.
I was down in Dayton looking at that particular antenna, and when I was looking at it, they were complaining about the hat and stuff, and it does all this crazy stuff. And then the guy said something, and you can get an additional piece of equipment to mount on it to go to 160 meters. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, there is. I can't remember if Gap themselves makes it, but I think there's someone that makes a loading coil for it to do 160 meters.
Not really well worn, though, right?
I'm not a 160 guy, so you guys stay up way too late to do 160. And I have kids, and I'm tired by 8 o'clock. So I think that does exist. I couldn't talk intelligently about it. I've heard that it exists. I don't know anything about it. But in theory, it's just like any other. You're putting a loading coil to make it electrically longer than it is physically. I mean, theoretically, it works. I just don't know the practical aspects of it. Did I see another thing? Okay. So it is, and I'm not trying to sell this as a magical antenna, right? You are making some electrical trade-offs, right? It looks like this, which means it's got all sorts of interesting resonance properties, and I don't know if you would consider these. I guess they're not traps. I guess I don't know. They're sort of like parts of kind of maybe a reflector, but not really. I'm not a good enough antenna engineer to know all of the science behind it, but they work. But you can lose a little bit, right? This is not a Yagi antenna where you're going to get like a 5 dB gain over a dipole because you've got like 40 elements pointed, in a 5-degree arc, right? This is an omnidirectional broad-banded antenna. You're actually going to lose a little bit, right? Not a lot, not so much that you're like, oh, I can't believe all the losses in this antenna. You're optimizing for different things, right? A Yagi is a huge, high-mounted rotator-based thing because you're trying to optimize for something. This antenna is optimizing for something completely different. So why did I like the Gap Titan? I mentioned no ground plane required. But beyond the sheer, I don't want to install radials and maintain radials, I have some of the common problems we all have. Lawnmowers, humans, animals. I live on 5 acres. I have 2 kids. I have a dog. We have groundhogs, vultures, foxes, deer, coyotes. I don't want them attacking the radials. The gap titan's mountable on the ground or can be elevated. So as I mentioned, we have this web here that's actually used for 40-meter tuning. Same considerations as the above. So I put it up on a pole because I have mowers, humans and animals. And I do not want to be yelling at the mower. Well, I'm usually on the mower. I don't want to be yelling at the humans or the animals to get out of my 40-meter tuning web area, right? It's space efficient, especially if you can elevate the base, right? Fred, you were talking about your 10 by 10 patio or your friend's 10 by 10 patio. With enough, ballast in a set of bricks on a sled or something and a 6-foot pole, you could put this on top of that 6-foot pole and still have like a little patio table under it. Just don't transmit while people are sitting directly underneath it, right? It's space efficient. And obviously band coverage. I really wanted an antenna that would cover 17 meters. If you like making interesting international contacts, there is very few bands that is better than 17 meters for making those contacts. I wanted my vertical to have 17-meter capability. If you've not done 17 meters, you should put up an antenna just to do 17 meters. That's the one band that I will always say, if you have to put up a special antenna just to do it, put up an antenna just to do 17 meters. And I see people nodding. I'm not just overselling this, right? 17 meters is a really, really nice DX in the true international contact sense band to use.
Question.
Yeah.
So all the bands you talked about, those are the antenna's resonant on that without a tuner.
Correct.
So it will cover all those.
You actually, according to the spec, you are actually not to use a tuner.
Oh, okay.
I
That was
assume
my next
because it'll
question.
blow up the cap.
Got
Is
it.
what I think.
All right. But that's
Yeah.
You wouldn't require like 17 meters. If you don't like the contest, you don't know if we get the talk.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, there's no contesting on the work on 17 meters. Yeah.
Just a couple of comments. For decades, I used the Gap Eagle antenna,
Mm-hmm.
which is one size smaller. It doesn't have 80. It's everything else except for 80. Slightly smaller. I love the antenna. One day I was copying some DX from out west, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, somewhere. And I had a 40-meter dipole, and I had the Gap Eagle antenna. When you would fade out on the dipole, I would switch over to the Eagle, and I'd copy him 10 over. And then he'd start fading out on the Eagle, which is vertical. And I'd switch back over to the dipole, and he'd come back in 10 over. So what that taught me is even though you get these reflections going off the ionosphere, after they bounce, they rotate. And so even though you're transmitting horizontally or vertically, when it comes back down, it might not be. They're spinning sometimes.
Yeah.
So having the option to go from horizontal to vertical polarization on 40 meters was just a really fun afternoon. And one more thing about the radials, if you get the dog invisible fence wire, it's meant to be put underground already, makes a nice radio.
Yeah. But don't put down radios. Buy this. No.
Yeah.
But what Dave's talking about, I was going to talk about a little later on. I have exactly the same thing. I bought a very nice isolated Alpha Delta AB coax toggle, and I can just sit there while I'm listening to somebody and be like, click, 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 click. Oh, they sound better over here. I'm going to use this. I've also made contacts where I could hear them better on one, but transmit better on the other, and I switch back and forth real fast. Not, you got to think about what you're doing, like key, unkey, switch, but it works, right? So that's why, right? So this is I broke out my drone. This is a kind of a top-down look. So the drone's about 60 feet in the air, looking down at my antenna system here. A couple of reasons maybe why you wouldn't want a Gap Titan. It does not have good short-range performance, right? Now, again, lots of caveats of in general, right? But in general, you're not going to talk to a lot of stuff between ground wave, which is essentially the things you can hit just transmitting into the free space, and DX distances, right? You're just there because your RF energy just isn't going there. You can hear them just fine, but you can't get to them, right? This is all about transmission. The other concept is, depending on your sense of aesthetics, you might consider it ugly. It's not for everyone. My wife is extremely tolerant of me and my hobbies, so she just goes, just make sure it's not right off the deck. And I said, yes, dear. But if you want a conversation piece, you can see it from my driveway when you pull in. If you've been to my house, you can see it. You've seen it, right? I've had a lot of interesting questions from UPS drivers and parents of my daughter's friends. And what's that thing? It's an interesting conversation piece, right? So if you're into I have the weird knickknack on my coffee table to start a conversation, the Gap Titan might be for you, right? Realistically, it does not blend into the background like a wire, right? The dipole, you put it up in the air, you're talking about a little piece of wire up in the air, you're not going to see it. You're not going to miss this, right? You're talking about 25 foot plus of bright, shiny aluminum. It's not blending into the background. Yeah, Wade.
I've lived in a city and you can't, the lots are kind of narrow. My neighbor told me, here's 10 in my backyard. What? Because it was swinging.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
back, swing, come back.
Yeah.
The wind was blowing. I had a gap.
Yeah.
Do you have guy wires on that too?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll cover that.
Okay.
I'll cover that. So a couple quick disclaimers. The Gap Titan directions are very good and very comprehensive, and you should follow them very carefully. This is an overview of my process. It may not work for you, and it may not be entirely complete. I built this 1.5 years ago. I put everything I remember doing into this presentation. I did not document this as a documentary when I was building it. So obviously use material in this presentation at your own risk. I say this for 2 reasons. Number one, if you follow these directions, you're erecting something very tall, and you need to look out for all of the things that happen when you're putting something very tall, notably electricity. I work for the power company. I will not say more about that. Also, this involves excavating things, and if you use what I did, you're installing some very heavy steel mast pipe that could fall over and hurt people. So please take care and read directions when building this. So, yeah.
One quick question. When I was down talking to that guy at Dayton, he had it on a platform, an aluminum platform or steel platform, and he said, "This is really a cool antenna. Just look at this." And he reached down, pulled this pin out, and just laid the thing right down.
Yeah, they make a tilt base. I'm not a big fan of it, but yes, mine's on a tilt base. I'll show you that. But yeah, you can put them on a tilt base.
How far up can you pull it off the ground?
Think as high as you want. I mean, it doesn't help or hurt doing it.
Oh, okay.
I put my 830-foot pole for a couple years.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I put it on a 5-foot pole after that.
And it worked exactly the same. Yeah.
Now, do these umbrella antennas, is that considered a vertical?
Are you talking about like the ones that like look like a curly spider web? No, those are essentially a very curly dipole, like a regular dipole. Some of them will claim they're sort of like a beam-ish kind of antenna. Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I've not used one, so I don't really want to.
The guy down by me, I think his name's Harold, rebuilt East kits and has rebuild kits for Drake power supplies. Lives close to me, and he's got one of them umbrellas in the back.
Yeah. There are some people that use them, they love them. My understanding is electrically they're pretty much a dipole. They're a very twisty dipole, but they're essentially electrically a dipole.
Are you talking about where he's got wires coming down off a vertical mast type of thing?
Are you talking about a vertical with like the little, like all the little fingers that hang off, or it's literally just like a web?
Like an umbrella size.
Yeah,
With
not
it's just a
turnstile.
mesh of wiring?
Yeah, not a turnstile.
Yeah, so yeah, it's he's just talking about like a,
There's capacitive pads that are used on verticals, the length of them, and they look like they're like an umbrella shape. They have the vertical portion of them coming out like umbrella ribs.
yeah, like a hex beam or a spider beam. Like they're like they go up and they kind of like make a circle like in two directions. I think that's what he's talking about. Anyway, so some of the build out stuff. You can do this with less cost and less pieces. Again, caveat about this is how I installed mine, your mileage may vary. Obviously, I bought a Gap Titan because that's why we're all here. I'll put all the connections in this utility enclosure you'll see. So mine is about 200 feet from the house. So I put a grounding rod out there with a grounder strap. I put a polyphaser lightning arrestor in there. Everything when I assembled the Titan, every piece I put together, I used copper anti-seize on all of the pieces so that they wouldn't rust together. And all the cabling is LMR 400. They do make that tilt base. I don't like it as it only holds the antenna itself, which I guess if you want to put it on the ground, that's fine. What I ended up doing was I put a mast. I sunk a 5-foot section of 1.5-inch galvanized Schedule 40 in the ground. And then I used the DX Engineering, this Omni Tilt QP base, which is a big solid piece of steel. And then I mounted a 10-foot section of 1.5-inch galvanized Schedule 40 as a mast, and then clamped the antenna on top of that. So I used a bunch of these dual V-clamp mast U-bolts. Obviously, you'll need Quikrete gravel and plug duct seal. If you're familiar with coax seal, I'm not talking about coax seal, right? This is used by electricians and plumbers. Like if you look at the side of your house where like your electric wire goes in, or like your air conditioner pipe, there's like that black hardened rubber plug. That's actually what's called plug duct seal. You mold it into the shape you want, and you stuff it into the hole, and then it actually hardens into. It's not like the Coke seal that's like a goo. And I'll show you where I used that in a few minutes. I did have it guide, Jeff, as you asked. I actually, I didn't want to just tie it off like the Gap Titan directions list. Tying mast clamp, which is, it's just what it looks like. You put it through the middle, and then you tighten all the bolts in series to kind of shrink it up tight. It has these nice little hooks for hooking the guide wires on. All of the guying I did is with Mastrant P3 Plus. If you're familiar with Mastrant, it's not nylon. It's some special magical rope, but it's basically no stretch, right? Once you cut the piece, it's the length you cut plus or minus like a very, very tiny amount. So it's very nice for making precisely long guying wires, and it doesn't decay over time. It's also not cheap. Again, your mileage may vary. It's not cheap. I bought 3 of these hook-to-eye turnbuckles, and then I bought 3 of these spiral ground anchors. This doesn't really do it justice. The picture of this is weird. They're about this long and about this wide. They're big. My Gap Titan didn't move when we had the windstorms in March. I looked out there and it was just going like that. So mast preparations. Dig a hole about the size of a 7-year-old boy. Thank you for laughing. I gave this presentation to another club a couple weeks ago and I got nothing. I got nothing out of that. My son thought the hole was the best thing he had seen all year. And it's like, can I climb in it? I'm like, okay. it's a hole, but go for it. So that ended up being a nice reference. This was when the hole was about 3/4 of the way down. So dig a hole about the size of your 7-year-old boy. Mine's 9. You can borrow him if you like if you put it up to his neck. In all seriousness, the GAP instruction manual says make an 18-inch diameter hole 3 feet deep. I made mine deeper and a bit wider because I was using the steel pipe. And I also wanted to put in a gravel base.
Did you take the kid out before you put
I did. Again, my wife would have been unhappy with the antenna installation if I cemented my son into the antenna.
Where's our son?
He's out there, honey. This is something that's really important that I don't think gets a lot of discussion. If you are going to embed anything in the ground and encase it in concrete, you want to design it such that the end of the mast, pipe, leg, whatever it is, sticks below the concrete into a bed of gravel so that you don't trap water in or between the material and the concrete. That is the fastest way for your post to rust and fall over. If you push it all the way through, so in my case, I put a steel piece of Schedule 40. It goes all the way through the Quikrete. It sticks out into the gravel about 2 inches. So if any water gets down inside or the concrete cracks or it separates a little bit and water gets down between the post and the concrete, it can go all the way down and out through the rocks in the bottom, and there's no dirt to plug it up. Dig the extra 6 inches, get a bag of gravel, pour it in there. You will be much happier in like 10 years. Don't put your ground rod in the concrete. If you look at people's pictures, I've seen pictures like that, or I've seen things that look like that's what they did, and you might misled into think, oh, I'm going to stick the ground rod in the concrete. You will be sad if your antenna gets struck by lightning. Do not put the ground rod in the concrete. So this is kind of what it looks like. As I mentioned, this is that 5-foot section. It's, I think the top of this was about 28 inches. By the time I was done, it kind of made like a partial cone shape down into the ground. Because, as the further you dig, the more and more you're tired of like, I just want this thing to end. How close am I to the bottom, right? So I cemented the pipe in. I assembled this DX Engineering tilt base. It has these 2 screws on the outside, and there's these hinge screws on the bottom. You will need to fiddle with these to make sure that you hit the right amount of tiltiness and rigidity. If you crank them all the way down like the directions seem to indicate, you'll put this up and you'll go, and it won't work very well. This is kind of nice because it actually has like this kind of hook thing. You kind of lift it up and it sits down into a seat, and then you kind of lift it back up and then it'll tilt down. The weight limit for this thing is like something crazy. It's a nicely built piece of steel. And then I bolted the 10-foot, the other Schedule 10-foot with one of those clamps that I showed you. So it sits on this plate right up against the top. So basically I'm putting the bottom of my gap at about 10.5, 12 feet up in the air. I'd note on the masting piece, right? The Titan directions call for a mast of 1.5-inch outer diameter. I used 1.5-inch Schedule 40. Now, if you're not familiar with pipes, there's inner diameter and there's outer diameter. Schedule 40 pipe is the measure of the inner diameter of the pipe. So a 1/2-inch piece of galvanized Schedule 40, or 1.5-inch diameter Schedule 40 is a 1/2-inch inner diameter with a 1.9-inch outer diameter. It's a very, very stable, strong pole that will not work with the clamp that GAP sends you. So I had bought specifically a set of saddle clamps, or not saddle clamps, V-mast clamps, to get a bigger jaw size to grab onto this 1.5 ID metal pipe. And really, I chose the bigger piece because, like I said, like in the last picture you saw, I mean, I'm starting 10 feet off of the ground. I wanted that to be a nice, solid base for the antenna. So the guiding part of that dipole, right? This yellow piece is the center, and then each one of these gray sleeves is a non-conducting sleeve that kind of holds everything together. I attached that tri-directional guiding clamp right in the middle. You can see the mast strand there. I did them with 2 half-hitch knots, cinched them up, they grab themselves, pull them tight. You're good to go.
About how far out from that is the guy wire? Like the 5 feet or 10 feet or 15 feet or?
I want to say it's 25 feet.
Oh,
I think.
okay.
I cut them about 40 feet long.
Okay.
I don't remember if I have the math in here for the guy.
That's all right. I
wires
was
or not.
just curious.
I guide mine out pretty good because I had the space to do it. And I didn't want to have to really crank them tight to kind of, create
Right,
that
right.
tension. You can do different things with it. Like I said, I use a 2 half-hitch knot to tie them off. Tie off the other end loosely to the turnbuckle.
Once you put it up, what's the purpose of building?
Well, I assembled mine on the ground and then push it up into place. So if you go back to this picture, so here's the base, it's tilted. I actually just had it resting on the back of this conveniently located garden chair. And then this was the whole antenna hanging off the end. And when after I had it mounted and everything clamped down and tightened up, just pushed it right up in the air.
Is it too heavy to just put it permanently? Put it up on a horse like you do beams and then just raise it up for solid? So
You could do that. It'd be a pain. I don't know. This was, other than the expense of buying the tilt base, this was really nice because it was just kind of slide it on and, I'm holding it with like one hand, and cranking the ratchet down. with the other.
Maybe you had to tune it or something.
You do, and that makes it nice too.
Oh,
It depends on how you feel about ladders. So, I mean, you do have to tune the 40-meter crossbeam piece. I just climbed up a ladder to tune it. But if you ever want to take it down or tune it or inspect it or repair it, the tilt base, you can't beat it. I don't want to have to saw horses and rigs and try and pull it in the air. I don't want that.
Jason, are your kids radioactive?
My son, I am surprised, has not choked himself on the wire yet because he just goes running through the yard. And I'm like, "Daka!" And somehow he hasn't run through it yet. I don't know. Oh, it's high enough off the ground actually that it passes I only use 100 watts. So, so the biggest thing is after you get up there, make sure you secure the tilt base. Locate where you want to put the screw stakes while keeping the inside angle of the guys about 35 to 45 degrees off center. If you make them you can make them short, but then you kind of run into that situation where you're like pulling down on the antenna rather than, keeping it straight. You can make them longer, but that's just kind of pointless. But the one thing is, it doesn't really look like it from this picture, but it's just the way the angle is. They're 120 degrees all the way around the center point of the antenna. So what like I said, I tied off the rope on this eyelet. I sunk the screw stakes in, and I just used the turnbuckle to tighten them up. Now you don't want to. Again, this is all aluminum, so you don't want to crank these guy wires down, right? You're not putting this under tension like a dipole or like some of the other things that you need that tension to hold it up. This is to keep it from bopping around in the wind, right? So you don't want to crank it down, because if you crank it down too hard, you could bend the aluminum. I didn't get a picture of it. I have the line comes down, terminates into a big plate. There's a big grounded plate with a polyphaser in it. This is the grounding. Wait, is that right? Yeah. This is the grounding wire. You can't really see it, but this is the coax. If I did, the one thing I would probably do over is I would probably use like a number 2 or a number 0 stranded cable for the ground rather than a strap. Just mostly because the strap tarnished and looks ugly now. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. No one's looking at it. But and then what I actually did was this is a piece of white PVC that I painted brown, and I took a saw and split and cut it down the middle about 3/4 of the way, so that the strap goes in the side, and then that cap just sits right down over top of the guy wire, and then I put a little bit of that duct seal on the tip to make a little cap. Mostly again for the 4-inch kid who's going to run through the yard. I know when I'm spearing himself on the grounding rod. This is where I buried the coax. This is again a piece of Schedule 40. There's nothing about this. It just goes down to the ground about 8 inches, and then it's just direct buried coax back to the house. Again, painted it brown, put that duct seal on the end of it, just to keep the moisture out. I did bury it. It's 200 feet into the house. That's an anti-mowing protection. And after you're done tuning and fiddling, make sure you lock everything down. Performance-wise, basically, in terms of broadbandedness and SWR, it basically hits what it advertises, right? These markers, it might be a little hard to see in the back. These markers are the bottom and top of each of the bands. So 10 is under 2, 15. It got a little bit higher right at the very end of the band, or I'm sorry, 12. That's 12. It got a little higher right at the end of the band. 15 was really good. It was under 1.5 all the way across. 17, just a little bit higher. 20 meters, very good. 30 meters, very good. This is where you get some of the interesting performance. The 40 meter, you have that cross beam with the web. There's you have to make it different lengths to get it right. I could never get it better than this. And I'm actually, if I have time and there's no one at the Gap booth, I might ask them about it this time. I don't do CW that much, so I don't really care about the very bottom end of 40 meters. The completist in me wants to figure out what the problem is and fix it, but it'll be something I'd spend like 12 hours on and then be like, okay, I've done that now, and then never use it. So I don't know. Because it's basically like below like 71 or 70. Yeah, it's like 70. It's like 79, 7.1 something. I don't know. Anyway, it's not. It hasn't been enough to worry about. And then, like I mentioned before, you get that that notch in 80 meters. I actually picked the 3.7 megahertz notch, and you can see mine hits almost perfect right at right about 3.75, and I can get a decent amount of the general portion of the phone band, which is what I mostly cared about on 80 meters. So works really well. I've been real happy with it. It's out away from houses, so it doesn't suffer. Verticals can sometimes be a little more susceptible to noise from all the wonderful electronics you have in your house. I put mine out far enough away that I don't hear it at all. It's actually a very, very quiet antenna. But if I had it closer to the house, it really probably wouldn't be too much of an issue. I've made some interesting contacts on it. The best one, the most interesting one recently was a phone contact to Taiwan, which was an interesting one. A lot of South Pacific, a lot of Caribbean. This has been really good for me getting into Africa, of all places. That it's been really good for Africa. So, that's it in a nutshell. So,
still in business?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is $549. Or 589, is that what it is?
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Okay.
You know, I Googled it, and I couldn't come up with much of anything.
Gap. It's Gap. The company's GAP. Gap.
Yeah.
And then Titan's their brand. But
Right.
yeah, they'll most likely be at him.
Gapantenna.com.
Yeah, Scott.
You showed the chart for the radiation pattern.
Yeah.
Where on the antenna is the bottom of the chart? Is it at
Is
the middle of the dipole?
is the bottom of what? I'm sorry.
Where is the bottom of the graph? Is that starting from the center of the dipole? You know, or at the bottom of the.
You're talking about the elevation angle charts.
Yeah, is that the bottom of the radiation one?
In true physics fashion, they're from an emanating point. In general, you would consider it radiating from the middle of the antenna, but for the distances we're talking about, it's not an important part of the calculation. Like if you were making like a microwave dish or like a terahertz radio link or something, it would greatly matter. In these cases, it doesn't matter because the frequency is so many orders of magnitude off of the height of the antenna that it doesn't matter. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I have a question. I understand putting the antenna close to the house as far as noise. But I'm thinking about something like that for 10 to 20. Is there any risk as far as having a lot of RF into your house if you have, let's say, like 25 feet from the house?
You mean irradiating your own house with it?
Yeah. I mean, because if it's
No.
that close.
Well, you have to do the RF safety calculation,
Right.
But again, in that case, you just calculated for the top end of 10 meters. Depending on your power level, it's going to come out to be, 10 feet, 12 feet. I don't want,
Under 100 watts, it would
Yeah.
be very single digits of
Yeah.
feet, probably.
if you're worried about radiation in your house, the antenna to worry about is your 2-meter antenna. That's the one that has the most interactions with the human body at a given distance based on its frequency.
And it also sets off my fire alarm, which my wife loves.
Yeah. Yeah. Your 2-meter within a margin of reasonableness, your 2-meter antenna is the one you need to worry about radiating your house. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm done because I'm going to Hamvention first thing in the morning. So, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I'm only paid for the next year, unless we
Okay.
miss one, but just throw 2025 on there for me.
Okay.
Okay.
You spoke about there's always some weird things that can go on
Yeah.
in life. Well, this sounds like a really good antenna. Although,
Fred, hold on one second. Hey guys, real quick too, if you have any stuff on the table, we have to clean up. So if you have any wrappers or anything, please make sure you put them in one of the garbage cans in the back.